2024 has been a special year for the medium of film. While the big studios seem to have saved the year's very best for the last 3 months, we have been graced with no shortage of forgettable, borderline unwatchable abominations from the moment the year began. Among the grotesque, multi-faced Cronenberg monster these atrocities have formed in my mind, there are 5 films that stand out as the very worst 2024 had to offer. At first glance, the idea of a horror film focusing on a haunted swimming pool may at least sound unique. Unfortunately, even with this amusing concept and $15 million to play with, the product is a story you've seen as many times as you've seen cliché horror films.
Dad!
There you are. Marco.
Okay, I'm calling for help.
Don't do that! Marco.
I would be contributing to a cliché myself to say Night Swim felt like it was written by AI, but with a premise that is simultaneously so lazy and yet somehow so absurd, I would be genuinely shocked to discover that there was actually a human out there who came up with this idea and then subsequently proceeded to write it down.
Go! Let's take him down! Come on, Ty! Come on, Ty! Here you go! Keep pushing! Keep down!
Alright, you let go now. Swallow. Swallow!
The film opens with a predictably formulaic sequence of a young girl being drowned in a swimming pool by some kind of supernatural entity. It's not until we meet our protagonist in the form of Kurt Russell's son, playing a retired baseball player who, suffering from a semi-debilitating back injury, moves his family to a new neighbourhood and a new house, which just so happens to be the one from the opening, that the film starts to become mildly entertaining, if only for its purely unintentional absurdity.
Familiar face makes his way down to the plate. What a story this has been.
The thing that keeps your attention in Night Swim is its romance. No, not the romance between the lead couple or between the teenage daughter and her generic love interest, but the romance between Russell and his new swimming pool.
You watching this? Just the water takes all the strain off my muscles. It's amazing.
Give me those muscles.
Throw this one in the pool for me. I'll come find it. Okay.
The only reason I decided to watch this film is the fact that these two actors are so much better than the typical Blumhouse nightmare this appeared to be. I thought, perhaps naively, that there must have been some kind of unique hook or specific reason that this would be the next project they chose to pursue, off the back of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and The Banshees of Inisherin.
There has to be some way to stop this.
The last thing anyone will say about Night Swim is that the characters did not spend enough time in the swimming pool, because why would they? In the rare scene that doesn't take place in or around the pool, not a single conversation will occur for more than a few moments before someone references back to it.
Maybe we should have the team over. You know, for a cookout or something?
Yes, that's a great idea. Yeah, like a pool party. That's why I married you, because you're a genius. Meet the Wallers, right?
Can I invite some friends?
Yes, invite whoever you want. It's a great idea. We should invite everybody you know.
How many people think we can fit in the pool?
We're the pool family.
I guess it's not necessarily a negative to say I found the extent to which this ridiculous idea is played with complete sincerity to be the most entertaining aspect of the entire film.
You're tapped into groundwater. I'm talking aquaclude. That's some sub-level aquifer shit.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? I'm about to tell you what that means. Natural filtration, geothermal heating, the whole shebang. Yeah, we'll give it a shock, but these spring pools are supposed to work miracles on your skin. We evolved out of the water, and some part of our reptilian brain knows we're not supposed to be there anymore. Guess that's why we try to tame it so hard.
Are you okay?
God, sorry, Butterfingers.
All right, we're good to go.
It's just so fucking stupid. And I don't even know that anyone involved was actually aware of that.
What horrible childhood game of Marco Polo made you want to ruin swimming pools for everyone? It just kind of like once you decide like this movie is built around the pool, then you just be like the diving board, you know, the feeling of like I'm under the diving board and someone's up there. You explore and so Marco Polo really came out of that.
I'm always amazed by the horror screenplays that somehow find their way into production, usually at the hands of Jason Blum. It's like as long as they come from a screenwriter with a proven track record, have a slightly unique premise, however dumb it may be, hit every essential formulaic beat in the narrative, and take as few creative risks as possible, studios will throw their money at almost anything, from yet another horror movie about a haunted house, to one about a haunted swimming pool, or another 5 about haunted apps. 2 out of 10. Joker 2 was a disaster. Not just from a commercial perspective, arguably the only one that really matters, but from just about any other metric you could use to measure the success of a $200 million film.
First Joker film is a masterpiece. I was on the edge of my seat. It was incredible. Arthur Fleck, he was just regular guy. It ends in an amazing way. When the dude finally goes on TV and he says, "You get what you effing deserve." Wow. Many said that they just ripped off Taxi Driver. I don't know. It was a great movie. But you can't have nice things. Joker collapses with a brutal 81% drop. Terrifier 3 tops the box office with 18 million. How did Joker 2 fail? Well, when they announced it was going to be a musical, I outright said, okay, I'm not going to go see that. Bye. I go to a movie, I leave, and I say, here are my notes for the director. Movie studios, you should hire me because I'll give you notes and I'll say, here's what you should do.
When the news first broke that Joker was getting a musical sequel co-starring Lady Gaga, I think most people presumed this was some kind of
joke.
These two components seemed as incompatible as incels and the LGBT community, coincidentally representing their respective die-hard fan bases.
Mr. Puddles. Gary Puddles?
Really? Your last name is Puddles? Why, it sounds like a joke.
Well, it's not.
When this joke was confirmed as a fact, a massive rift divided the biggest and most terminally online fans in the community. Many declared their unequivocal faith in Todd Phillips, but others, myself included, couldn't imagine the director of the Hangover trilogy being able to pull off a subversion of audience expectation on this scale. And he couldn't.
Let's give the people what they want.
Instead, what he managed to produce was the most shallow, self-indulgent and tone-deaf sequel I've seen in quite some time.
Oh, so don't do this to yourself. It isn't you. So you don't think this is me? Or maybe you don't know who I really was.
I'm of the opinion that the original Joker was a good film in spite of its director, owed mostly to Phoenix's insane lead performance. Nevertheless, it told a story that many people deeply connected with. The film's cinematography, lighting, and overall presentation was consistently outstanding, and alongside a number of dramatic and climactic sequences, helped the film to have a lasting cultural impact rarely seen in recent times. Of course, there are many differences between Joker 2 and its predecessor, with the most obvious being its underwhelming jukebox musical numbers. But many of the criticisms I have with the script could, to an extent, be levelled at either film. With that said, the first Joker looks close to a masterpiece when compared with this. You might assume that's because the success went to Phillips's head, and given he thought he was capable of creating a subversive deconstruction of the cultural reception to his first film that would still somehow be equally as successful, you'd probably be correct.
You really took a bold path with this film, moving further away from the comic book characters' roots. Is there any part of you that worries how DC fans could react given that it's so different than they may expect?
No. I mean, and I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's just not what you can't necessarily concern yourself with that when you're making films, when you're creating art or whatever you're doing. You have to kind of ignore the results to some extent and do your thing.
Characters in this film are as one-dimensional as they come, through no fault of these extremely well-paid actors. Lady Gaga suffers the most from the screenplay's shallowness, a manic pixie dream girl who exists as the literal personification of Joker's sycophantic obsessives.
Sing hallelujah, come on, get happy.
Each character, including the protagonist himself, is a poorly disguised tool for Phillips to explore these overarching themes of self-examination, entirely at the expense of reaching any kind of truth or poignancy.
Knock. Knock. Who's there? Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck who?
Even the film's greatest asset, its visuals, contain numerous examples of creative regression. With such a colossal increase in budget, there also comes particular expectations. However, if you deduct the salaries of Phoenix, Gaga and Phillips, you're left with the same budget as Joker 1. So why does this film feel even smaller?
I'll be asking you a few questions today, Arthur, okay? Maybe you don't remember some things?
With Risk forming the foundations of this film's conception, you might also expect the story to be less conventional and more complex than the first. But no, the plot and central arc of Folie is as basic as they come, and somehow even less unique than what many describe as a beat-for-beat retelling of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. The musical numbers are so clumsily orchestrated and inorganically integrated that they deserve separate and specific criticism. Todd Phillips intentionally relies entirely on the two leads' performances of existing jazz classics to convey their emotional connection. These sequences effectively serve as a replacement for any kind of character development. Joker 2 is a boring, underdeveloped, tone-deaf mess. If you haven't yet seen the film, I can only give you one piece of advice. Don't. 2 out of 10.
Oh
My God.
Argyle is best described as a complete mindfuck, starring Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, Henry Cavill, and writer-director Matthew Vaughn's disabled cat, who apparently devoured this film's entire CGI budget. The only way to understand the unparalleled confusion of seeing this film is to experience it for yourself.
You trust Alfie, right?
Of course.
This is a spy movie meets meta-comedy action sci-fi thriller romance with a cat, and is arguably more of an ego project than even Joker 2 was, and in any other year would surely be the worst that Hollywood has to offer. And yet, the film is weirdly watchable, in a car crash you can't look away from kind of way.
I love this book!
See, I was telling the truth.
Who's the weirdo now?
Like Joker 2, this film also cost about $200 million, but perhaps more bizarrely, they were banking on the original idea of a filmmaker with an, at best, mixed track record.
I certainly hope you dance as well as you dress.
There's only one way to find out.
In a way, I suppose Universal's confidence in Matthew Vaughn's daring script is to be admired, but equally, at least a couple of people should probably have been fired for their decision to fund the project. If I hadn't seen Kick-Ass and Kingsman, I would guess Vaughn had no grasp on the kind of tone this film is going for, but realistically, this should have been right in his pocket, and somehow it felt like he had zero idea of how to direct these A-list actors in scenes that he wrote himself.
Little help, Kira?
Who's Kira?
The girl who gave up being the next Steve Jobs to save his sorry ass.
Each actor in the film honestly gives the worst performance of their entire career, hampered by the cheesy, on-the-nose quips and bland expositional drivel which form the majority of their dialogue. The narrative itself is even stranger than the personalities of these characters, a series of flat setups, tonally incompatible twists, and empty payoffs that make it even more difficult to remain connected to anything happening. I guess the only commendable aspect of Argyle is its unfounded sense of ambition. There is absolutely zero reason that this needed to cost $200 million. Bravo to Matthew Vaughn and Universal for throwing that much money at an original new IP. After this, I'm sure it'll be a while before they would ever make that mistake again, so bring on Jurassic World Rebirth. 1 out of 10. Madam Web was completely ripped to shreds when it was released back in February, to a degree I don't think we've seen since Morbius in 2022.
Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Sony's track record of sheer incompetence on a massive scale is, at this point, completely unmatched. For a company to be responsible for such a prolific catalogue of Shyamalan-esque catastrophes indicates the degree of mismanagement has become so deep-rooted, even foundational, that it would be difficult to imagine a future where they can begin to find success.
Take that shot.
How about you come with me? Okay. Go somewhere we'll talk. Away from all these people, okay?
As a result, it's difficult to understand how much of the blame can be placed at the feet of director S.J. Clarkson. Whatever happened behind the scenes, she clearly had no grasp on this production.
That fantastic scene in the diner, I have to ask you about, set to Britney Spears and Toxic.
Yes.
What was the thought process behind that song and just the way the sequence came together using it?
Well, credit where it's due, that was in the script when I got it.
Girls, get in, get in! Whatever the future holds, we'll be ready.
Unlike Morbius, Madam Web was at least legitimately entertaining, if only in the way I could say the same of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
They can climb like spiders. Just like Ceiling Guy.
Whether it's Dakota Johnson, who came across like she didn't want to be involved with the project from the first scene through to the several weeks-long press tour.
He was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died. Do you remember that going viral?
Why did that go viral?
I think it went viral because, out of context, people were just like, what does this mean? Did you catch that at all?
No. Somebody brought this up and I have no idea what it's about.
There were lots of memes because I think people were like, what is... Just out of the context of it, it was just a very...
But isn't any sentence out of context out of context?
Yeah, very true.
What a silly thing.
There was just lots of bits that were like, oh, that, and that, and that. Do you know what I mean?
He was in the Amazon researching spiders with my mom before she died.
Yeah.
That seems like a basic storyline to me.
Fair enough.
But maybe I'm just underneath it.
No, that's fair.
Or the unintentionally hilarious antagonist whose entire vocal performance was very clearly re-recorded in post.
Where's my spider? They took my spider.
With his lips seldom matching the words being said and sometimes being hidden altogether.
What are you doing? How are you poisoning me?
Yes, please, your password. Tell me quickly before the paralysis reaches your lips, and I'll stop the poison. Believe me, It's a good thing you had no idea today was the day you were going to die.
This entire production was like a vacuum for talent, and everyone associated with Madam Web seems to have since vocalised regret around their involvement. While it is definitely one of the very worst of the year, it's also the only film on this list that falls so flat on its face, I would gladly rewatch it again and again.
Searching for that spider for years.
No, don't.
No one helped me. Give it to me.
Please. No,
You could just walk away.
1 out of 10.
All my life, I wanted to be pretty. I thought it would change everything.
Uglies is the latest from legendary director and producer McG, based on the 2005 dystopian young adult novel by Scott Westerfeld. Starring Joey King, Chase Stokes, Brianne Dew, and Keith Powers, the overwhelming majority of people seem to have written this film off as one of the biggest pieces of dog shit in recent memory. But what if I told you the overwhelming majority of people are fucking stupid? From the very first frame, Uglies proves this will be an experience like no other.
Hundreds of years ago, people became overly reliant on fossil fuels. They squandered Earth's natural resources, and the planet quickly descended into chaos and war. We call those people Rusties.
When one of the best filmmakers working today announced he was adapting one of my favourite dystopian YA novels, I could barely contain my excitement. To see this universe realised on screen with the tender loving care of McG, displaying such faithfulness to the beloved source material, was an extremely emotional experience for me. Tally Youngblood, played by Joey King, is what's called an ugly, which at least in this universe, means she's ugly as fuck.
I'm turning into a pretty, exciting stuff. Let's go.
I've gotten pretty. It only took so much work. I love the look.
As part of a cultural ceremony to maintain world peace, at age 16 she will be surgically transformed into what's called a pretty, and let loose in the city to have a pretty party. Many years ago, Tally and her BFF and fellow ugly, Paris, decided in typical teen fashion to cut themselves, vowing to keep these scars forever as a way to remember what they once were.
Squint. Nose and squint. I like it.
Don't you want gold eyes? Like mine?
It's like we're invisible. Let's make a promise. While we're still like this, squint. We won't be ugly. Squint. Ah! Wait, squint. Best friends forever.
But when her friend gets his ritualistic plastic surgery, things don't go exactly as expected, and he no longer values the relationship he once had with this disgusting, putrid excuse for a human being.
It's me.
Tally, I didn't really know what we'd talk about. I mean, you'll get it when you're pretty.
We said best friends forever.
Maybe we will be.
Your scar. You promised me.
I just didn't really want it anymore, Tally.
Don't call me Tally. You call me Squint.
Stop. Get back from the ledge.
Tally soon comes to realise everything in her reality is not quite as it once seemed. Without giving away the delicate intricacies of the plot, I will just say Uglies has everything you could ever ask for. A rich tapestry of subtextual commentary on beauty standards.
I just was very attracted to Uglies primarily because of the messaging of the books, which I thought was so progressive and prescient in regard to people being obsessed with their looks and just seeing what's going on, where you can't just post a picture today on Instagram or what have you. You got to run it through a filter. You got to try to realize, some unattainable ideal of beauty that I don't think exists. So I just loved the opportunity to work with Joey and comment on this cultural moment we're having, and do so in a film that, with a film, there's just female hero, action packed, a lot of heart, world creation, world building. It just it had everything that attracts me as a filmmaker, so I jumped all over it.
A likeable cast of complex, multifaceted characters headed by rising star Joey King.
Tally, shut your eyes. Golden, just like you always wanted. You're not jealous, are you? I'm so sorry.
And some of the most remarkable cinematography and special effects work to ever see the light of Netflix.
Everyone, on their 16th birthday, undergoes a life-changing operation to become their most perfect self. When everyone is perfect, conflict melts away.
You might notice my tone around this film is a lot more positive than it's been throughout the rest of this video. The cold hard truth is, you've been deceived. Uglies is not the worst movie of 2024.
Konnichiwa!
It is, in fact, a misunderstood masterpiece and the single greatest cinematic achievement of the 21st century.
People call us uglies.
Stop what you're doing and go and watch this film right now. 10 out of 10.